The day began quiet, too quiet for New Nebraska. Out here, 30 parsecs from the Soul Gate, peace was never a gift. It was the lull between reactor meltdowns, dust storms, or some bureaucrat's idea of progress. I was out fixing the western perimeter fence, an old stretch of aluminum and quantum mesh that kept the prairie drones from wandering off. When the first tremor rolled through the sky. At first, I thought it was a quake. Then the horizon flared green. The color wasn't right. It wasn't dawn, or gas flare, or even the reflection of the orbital mines. It was alive. The sky rippled like the inside of an aurora, except thicker, almost viscous. You could feel it pressing against your skin, like standing too close to a reactor coil. My sensors started chirping. Solar flux climbing fast. Radiation index 3.9 gives for 0.7 gives 6 point to seek shelter. The handheld droned in a monotone. Severe solar activity inbound. I'd heard about storms this bad, the kind that could fry orbitals, short nav computers, and even wipe the memory from a half-buried AI. But the news feeds said nothing. Then again, the feeds never did. By the time I reached the barn, the power grid had gone out. My drones fell from the sky like stunned insects, their eyes dimming. And then came the sound, a low-frequency hum that made the earth vibrate, followed by a streak of fire cutting through the emerald clouds. At first, I thought it was a meteor, but meteors don't correct their trajectory mid-fall. The object burned across the upper atmosphere, leaving a trail of molten silver before it slammed into the wheat fields beyond the ridge, sending a shockwave through the soil. My entire southern fence line disintegrated. The echo rolled through the ground like thunder underwater. Damn it, I muttered, grabbing my radiation hood and an old plasma rifle I hadn't fired since the wars. The weapon's power cell blinked weakly to 30% charge. Good enough. By the time I reached the crater, the air stank of ozone and fused dirt. The craft, if you could still call it that, had torn itself apart. Its hull shimmered like liquid mercury, bending and reforming as if it couldn't decide what shape it wanted to be. Energy rippled off it in blue arcs, grounding into the mud. Then I saw movement. A figure crawled from the wreckage, tall and angular. The helmet cracked open, releasing a hiss of pressurized gas. The being inside shook off the debris and rose to full height, at least 2 meters. Her armor a dark graphite that glimmered like animal fur in the stormlight. And behind her, 12 more. They stepped through the smoke one by one, synchronized, silent, weapons slung low but ready. Their visors glowed faint amber, scanning in perfect formation. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of ionized metal and something else, musky, primal. Not human. When the lead one approached, I kept the rifle steady but low. "Identify yourselves," I said, voice shaking just enough for them to notice. The leader tilted her head slightly, a distinctly candid motion. Then she reached up and unlocked her helmet. Underneath was a face framed with silver-white fur, streaked with black around the muzzle and eyes that burned like molten gold. "We need shelter," she said, her voice clear, metallic, and undeniably female. "The storm has disabled our ship. Radiation levels are rising." I blinked. "You're like her, eh?" She gave the faintest hint of a grin, showing teeth a little too sharp. "Captain Vex Aaron, Interplanetary Marshal Service. These are my hunters, bounty hunters, the Lycae, genetically engineered soldiers of the outer colonies. Wolf DNA spliced with human base code and cybernetic augmentations. Designed for perfect sensory balance, regenerative tissue, and pack-based neural synchronization. The kind of soldiers who once ended wars before they began and were later outlawed. Because nobody could control them. And now there were 13 of them on my field. "I don't have much room," I said, swallowing hard. "A barn, a water recycler, some shielding if you don't mind old tech. You'll have to." Before I finished, another flare tore through the sky, painting everything in ultraviolet and green. Static danced across my rifle, stinging my fingers. Vex nodded once. "Your barn will do." They moved fast, almost too fast, forming a perimeter as they guided the wounded out of the crash site. I caught glimpses of their armor interfaces, flickering data streams and glyphs I didn't recognize. They were efficient, disciplined, almost graceful. Within an hour, they had converted my barn into a makeshift command post. One wolf rigged a shield generator from their ship's wreckage. casting the area in a faint blue shimmer. Another calibrated med drones over a wounded sister whose leg had been torn open, exposing muscle fiber laced with metal. I tried not to stare, but it was hard not to. They were terrifying and beautiful. Half flesh, half forged steel, each one with subtle differences in fur tone, armor marks, and eye hue, like a squad of living constellations. When the storm began to howl across the plains, Vex turned to me. "How many humans live here?" she asked. "Just me," I said. "Used to be a family, once. They moved on." She studied me for a moment, unreadable, those golden eyes. "Then tonight, you have a pack." The barn doors closed. The shielding hummed to life, and the solar storm raged outside like the wrath of gods. Hours later, lying on a cot beside the generator hum, I heard them speaking in low, rumbling tones, their native tongue, a mix of clicks and growls. It wasn't threatening. It sounded like the wind itself was speaking through them. I wondered how long they'd stay. I wondered what they were really running from. And somewhere outside, beyond the glowing fence line, something moved, to smooth, to silent, like the storm had brought something else down with them. But that would come later. For now, 13 wolf bounty hunters had taken shelter on my farm, and the night had only just begun. The storm raged for 2 days. By the second morning, the sky had become a living circuit, clouds churning with green fire, lightning forking in eerie silence. The electromagnetic flux scrambled every system on the farm. Drones fell from their charging docks. The autofeeders seized up. Even my chronometer glitched, jumping hours at a time. If I hadn't known better, I would have said time itself had fractured. Inside the barn, though, order reigned, brutal, efficient order. The Lycrae had turned my hayloft into a forward base. They moved like a single organism, every motion deliberate, synchronized, a pack's rhythm encoded into cybernetic instinct. I'd wake at night to the software of armor servos, to the scent of machine oil and musk, to the faint glow of amber eyes tracking every sound. Captain Vex Aaron had claimed the east stall, nearest the door. She rarely spoke unless necessary, but her presence filled the barn like gravity. Her fur caught the electric glow with hints of violet. Her armor dented from the crash, yet still immaculate in its lines. She was precise even in exhaustion, the kind of leader who made you straighten your posture just by breathing near her. Her second-in-command, Naira, was the opposite, larger, darker, scarred from neck to jaw, with a streak of dull copper fur running down her back. She had a habit of pacing, claws tapping lightly against the floorboards when she was thinking. If Vex was the commander, Naira was the instinct. The rest of the pack blurred together at first. Soldiers, healers, techs, until I began to learn their patterns. Ro and Sen worked the comms array, stringing lines of fiber through my rafters like spider silk. Kira and Leo watched the perimeter, eyes scanning the shifting shadows beyond the storm's edge. Even when resting, their heads twitched, ears flicking toward any sound I couldn't hear. They trusted each other absolutely. They didn't trust me, not yet. The first day, I tried to make conversation. Didn't go well, so I said, handing out ration packs I'd salvaged from my old supply locker. "You hunt fugitives for the Marshal Service, right? That's far from the frontier." Naira's eyes narrowed. "Do you always ask questions of predators while offering food?" I froze, unsure if that was a joke. Then I caught the faintest twitch of her muzzle, a grin. Vex didn't react at all. "Our target is high priority," the captain said, slicing open the ration bar with one claw. "Designation, Memark 7, escaped genetic weapon from the Jupiter Biocombine. It can mimic humanoid DNA with full memory imprint. It's been active on 6 colonies. We track it to this sector before the storm interfered." "Mimic," I said slowly. "So it can look human, or like Lycrae," Naira added grimly. "It could be wearing a friend's face right now." Her words hung in the air like smoke. The others didn't flinch. They'd heard it before. But for me, the thought of something wearing another person's skin, their life, sent a cold ripple down my spine. "So you think it could have survived the crash?" Vex didn't answer immediately. She bit off a chunk of protein bar, chewed, swallowed. "If it did, it will come here. It seeks warmth, power, and identity. A pack, perhaps." The way she said pack made me glance around. 13 pairs of golden eyes watched me, and for one strange, dizzying moment, I wondered if any of them were real. Night fell heavy. The wind shrieked through the silos like a siren. The power grid sputtered again, and the barn plunged into darkness until Vex's techs activated portable light emitters, soft white orbs floating in midair, humming gently. Outside, the storm glowed like the inside of a dying star. The Lycrae set up a guard rotation. 2 outside, 1 near the generator, 1 by the entry hatch. They didn't sleep in the human sense. They'd power down 1 hemisphere of their brain at a time, alternating vigilance and rest. I tried to do the same in my little corner of the barn, but every creak made my pulse jump. I wasn't used to company, and this was not company. This was a squad of apex predators pretending to be stranded soldiers. At some point past midnight, Naira approached me while I was tinkering with the reactor console. "You have courage," she said quietly. Her voice was low, raspy. "Most humans hide when they smell wolf." I shrugged. Had a long time to get used to being alone. "Fear gets boring after a while." She studied me for a long moment, eyes gleaming. "You're strange. That's good. Strangeness keeps you alive." Then she turned away, tail swaying behind her armor, and left me staring at my reflection in the monitor. Strange. Maybe she was right. By the second night, the storm had worsened. Static arced across the window panes in web-like patterns. I went outside briefly, against their orders, to check the drone sheds. The wind nearly ripped my hood off. That's when I saw the tracks. At first, I assumed they were the wolves. But no, these were smaller, narrower, with an irregular gait. Not machine, not human. The prints led from the tree line, straight to the storage bunker, then vanished in a patch of scorched dirt. Something else had walked here, something trying to hide its steps. When I returned to the barn, dripping rain and static, Naira met me halfway. Her nostrils flared, and she froze. "You've been near it." "Near what?" Her hand shot out, gripping my arm. "You reek of alien blood." The barn erupted in motion. Weapons hummed to life. Vex stepped forward, her amber eyes narrowing as she scanned my face. "Explain." I started, but then I realized. The prints, the bunker, the faint metallic smell that had clung to the air. I told them what I'd seen. Vex's expression hardened. The fugitive may have followed our descent vector. "It's drawn to power sources." She gestured to her team. "Lock perimeter, scan thermal bands. Nothing in or out without confirmation." The barn became a hive of motion. Drones lifted from their cradles. Sensors flickered to life. And amid the chaos, Vex gave me a curt nod. "You did well. Next time, don't wander." "Wasn't planning to," I muttered. But I didn't sleep at all that night, because somewhere, out in the storm, something was moving between the fields, watching us. I could feel it. The wolves could too. Their ears twitched toward sounds only they could hear. And once, just before dawn, I saw Vex standing at the door, unarmored, the stormlight outlining her silhouette. And for the first time, her mask slipped. There was fear in her eyes, not for herself, for her pack. When morning came, the green sky dimmed, but the air remained charged, heavy, electric, like the world was holding its breath. I made breakfast the old-fashioned way, eggs from the recycler, soy cakes, and black coffee. The wolves didn't eat much, just small bites, their metabolism too advanced for human fare. But the gesture mattered. They sat around my table. 13 Lycrae warriors and 1 tired human farmer. And for the briefest moment, it felt almost normal. Until Ro, the comms tech, broke the silence. "Captain, I've got residual energy readings near the north fence. Not from the storm. Organic." Vex rose slowly, eyes narrowing. "How recent?" Ro hesitated. "Within the hour." The barn went silent. 13 amber gazes turned toward me, not accusing, not hostile, but measuring. Vex's voice dropped to a growl. "Our fugitive is near." And in that instant, the storm outside didn't seem half as dangerous as what was about to begin. The storm began to quiet, but the silence it left behind was worse. No wind, no hum of distant turbines, just the faint crackle of static bleeding through the fence lines, like the world was whispering in a language I couldn't quite hear. That morning, the light filtering through the barn slats was a sickly green. The Lycrae were restless. They moved differently now, more cautious, more separate. The easy rhythm of their pack had splintered. Conversations dropped to murmurs when I walked by, and even among themselves they kept glancing sideways, as if unsure who they were looking at. Paranoia, I realized, was poison to a pack, and something had poisoned them deeply. Vex stood by the generator core, armor plates off, her undersuit slick with condensation. She stared at a holographic map projected from her wrist, her golden eyes flicking between red blips along the northern fields. Naira paced nearby, tail flicking, tension bleeding off her in waves. The readings fade and return. Ro reported, kneeling by a portable scanner. Like it's ghosting our sensors. I can't get a clear biosign. Then stop using human logic. Vex snapped. It's not hiding, it's playing. Her voice was calm, but the edges were sharp. Naira met my eyes, then looked away. There was something there, something I didn't want to see. At midday, the first body turned up. One of the scouts, a young wolf named Kale, hadn't checked in. They found her behind the silo, half buried in soil. At first, I thought she'd been electrocuted by a stray power arc, but the damage was surgical. Her throat was split open with clean precision, like something had peeled her open to look inside. Vex knelt beside her, claws tracing the wound's edge. No struggle, she murmured. It came from someone she trusted. The pack shifted uneasily. I saw one glance suspiciously at another. In the space of a heartbeat, loyalty had turned into doubt. Naira straightened. It's among us. Could have taken her form already. That was when I realized what she meant. If the Mimarch had killed Kale, it could be any of them now. Vex looked to me. You know this land better than we do. Is there anywhere someone could hide, undetected, from both storm and sensors? My throat went dry. There's the old grain silo tunnels, below the eastern ridge. They haven't been used since the reactor expansion, but they're shielded. Naira's ears flattened. Then that's where it's nesting. No, Vex said, her voice soft but commanding. That's where it wants us to go. We ran diagnostics on every Lycorae's biosignature. The Mimarch's mimicry wasn't perfect. It copied DNA but not neural rhythm. Each Lycorae's pack link emitted a specific frequency, synchronized to Vex's command implant. If one of them were fake, there'd be a subtle desync in their resonance pattern. So Ro lined them up, one by one, inside the barn, 13 armored wolves standing in a row, the hum of their link cores echoing faintly. I stood in the corner, feeling like a mouse at a lion's council. Ro activated the scan. A cascade of blue light passed over them, shimmering like ripples across a lake. One by one, the readings came back clean, until the last dot. Kira, the youngest of the group, flinched as the scanner hit her chest plate. The readings glitched, spiking erratically before returning to normal. To normal. Ro frowned. That's impossible. It's perfect, cleaner than baseline. Vex's hackles rose. Mimarch. Kira backed away, eyes wide, hands raised. No, I swear, Before she could finish, Naira lunged. The D hit the ground in a blur of motion, claws, teeth, armor colliding. The barn erupted in chaos. Others drew their weapons, unsure who to help. I ducked behind the generator, heart pounding. Then, impossibly, both Kiras screamed. I looked up, and there were two of them, identical, moving in perfect sync. One real, one not. But which? Hold fire. Vex roared. The air shimmered. One of the Kiras flickered, her form glitching, giving way to raw pink flesh, features melting into a half-human, half-wolf horror. Her voice fractured into static shrieks. The Mimarch's disguise collapsed, revealing something like liquid metal straining to stay alive, constantly morphing, faces, eyes, mouths flickering in and out of existence. It spoke in every voice it had stolen. Warmth, identity. The pack remembers. The sound alone made my vision blur. Naira didn't hesitate. She drove her blade into the creature's chest, a plasma edge that burned through shifting matter. The Mimarch screamed, not in pain, but in defiance, and its body exploded into a spray of black shards that evaporated in the charged air. Silence followed. Then the faint hiss of power cells cooling. Everyone stared at the spot where it had died, waiting for something else to move. Nothing did. The only sound was the crackle of the generator. Vex exhaled slowly. Confirm all neural links. They did. 12 signatures, all sensed. Kale gone, Kira safe. The Mimark destroyed, or so it seemed. That night, I couldn't sleep. My hands still shook. The image of that thing, melting, reforming, wouldn't leave me. It had spoken with my voice for a second. I'd heard it. It knew me, outside. The storm had faded completely. The fields were silent. No wind, no insects. Just the low hum of distant machinery trying to remember how to live again. I walked outside for air. The stars were back, sharp, cold, infinite. I thought of how small the farm looked beneath them. How small we all were, even these warriors built to defy nature. Then I saw it dot by the north fence. A dark shape moved, not walking, flowing. It shimmered, half invisible, like heat distortion in winter air. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. But then I heard it, a whisper that came from everywhere at once. Warmth, the pack remembers. I raised my rifle, hands trembling, but the shape dissolved into the soil, leaving behind a faint smell of ozone and blood. When I returned to the barn, Vex was waiting at the door, eyes already on me. She didn't need to ask. "It's not over," I said. She nodded once, jaw tight. "I know. It never is." By dawn, they were ready. Armor resealed. Weapons charged. Every Lycrae on edge. The Mimark had survived. Maybe a fragment, maybe a copy. It didn't matter. It had tasted their memories, their unity, and now it would try to break them from within. Vex gathered the pack in front of the barn, her voice low and commanding. "It knows us now," she said. "Our rhythms, our scent, our fear." But it made one mistake. It learned what it means to have a pack, and it will never truly belong to one. She looked at me, the lone human among wolves. "You stay behind the shields. If we fall, you burn everything." I wanted to protest, but something in her tone stopped me. This wasn't courage. It was ritual, the acceptance of death as part of duty. Naira barked once, a sharp, guttural sound that sent a shiver through me. The others joined her, low, synchronized howls rising like a prayer to the storm-ripped sky. And when they moved out, 13 shadows across the glowing fields, I realized something that made my stomach turn. There were supposed to be 12. Dawn broke in silence. No thunder, no storm, just the hollow calm of a world that had survived something it didn't understand. The auroras had faded from the sky, leaving behind a washed-out gray that made the land look unreal. The wheat fields, scorched and half vaporized, glimmered with frost and ash. My sensors registered residual radiation, but faint, almost harmless. The storm had passed. The wolves hadn't returned. The shields around the barn hummed faintly. A dying pulse. Inside, the air was heavy with ozone and the smell of burnt metal. The generator had dropped to 4% capacity. My hands shook as I fed at the last of my fuel cells. Every movement deliberate, not because I was afraid, but because fear was useless now. Fear didn't fix circuits. Fear didn't bring them back. The comms array crackled once, faint static. Then a voice, fragmented, metallic. "Don't open, it's not." Then silence. I stared at the console. My first instinct was to run, to seal the hatch and pretend I hadn't heard. But I couldn't. Vex's last order echoed in my mind. "If we fall, you burn everything." I grabbed my rifle, my rebreather, and stepped into the light. The world outside felt wrong. Too still, too quiet. The kind of silence that listens. Their footprints were easy to follow. A trail of heavy indentations crossing the wet fields, then splitting into 2 directions, one leading toward the ridge, the other toward the old silo tunnels. The earth around the second path shimmered faintly, like heat distortion, or something beneath the surface that wasn't supposed to move. I chose the ridge. If Vex was alive, that's where she'd make a stand. The walk was slow, uphill, each step crunching on frost. The wind picked up again, not storm wind, but something colder, thinner, threading through the ruined landscape. And then I saw her. Captain Vex Aaron stood at the ridge's crest, armor cracked, formatted with blood. Her plasma rifle hung loose in one hand, muzzle steaming faintly. Around her, the remains of 3 Lycrae lay scattered, not dead, not alive, but half consumed by something that had melted them into the soil. Their eyes were open, reflecting the pale sky like broken glass. "Vex," I called. She didn't turn immediately. When she did, her gaze was sharp but distant, like she was seeing me from somewhere far away. It's learning faster, she said. Too fast, the Mimark? She nodded once. It doesn't just copy us anymore. It's becoming us. Every time we kill a fragment, it divides, evolves, adapts to our weapons, our signals, even our instincts. Where's Naira? Vex's jaw tightened. Gone, but not lost. Something in her tone made me stop asking. The wind shifted. Somewhere behind us, a howl rose, long, low, mournful. Then another, answering it. Then another. It was impossible to tell if it was wolves or something pretending to be them. Vex raised her rifle. Stay close. We descended the ridge toward the tunnels. The air grew colder, the soil darker, pulsing faintly underfoot like veins beneath a wound. The entrance to the silo tunnels yawned open ahead, a jagged mouth in the earth. Every instinct told me not to go in. Vex went first. I followed. Inside, the walls glowed faint blue from old emergency lights still clinging to life. Condensation dripped from the ceiling, echoing like distant footsteps. The deeper we went, the more the light warped, as if reality itself were bending. Then we found them. The rest of the pack stood in a circle, unmoving. Their armor shimmered faintly, their eyes blank. At first, I thought they were alive, waiting. But as I drew closer, I saw the truth. Their bodies pulsed with a slow rhythm, flesh and metal shifting beneath the skin. As if something inside was breathing for them. The Mimark, Vex whispered. It's using them as anchors. The floor trembled. The walls pulsed. And from the center of the circle, the air peeled open. It rose from the ground. A shape that had no shape. A reflection of everything it had devoured. For an instant, it wore Naira's face. Then mine. Then Vex's. Its voice was every voice, layered into one endless whisper. You gave us names. You showed us warmth. Now we belong. Vex stepped forward, her rifle leveled. You belong nowhere. The creature smiled with my mouth. You will die alone, hunter, but we will always have a pack. It lunged. The tunnel exploded into motion, light, noise, heat. Plasma fire ripped through the darkness. The Mimark split into 3, 5, each fragment flowing like mercury through the air. Vex fought with the precision of a machine and the fury of a wolf. Each shot vaporizing another limb, another imitation. But it kept coming, reforming, faster, learning her moves. I saw it coming for her. A tendril of molten flesh striking from behind, and I didn't think. I dove, tackling her aside. The blast meant for her tore into me instead. Pain like lightning, like every nerve set on fire. My vision swam. Vex roared, not human, not mechanical, pure, feral rage. She grabbed the fusion core from her rifle and slammed it into the creature's chest. The light flared so bright it turned everything white. Run, she shouted. I can't, that's an order. I stumbled back, half blind, as the Mimark wrapped around her, its tendrils searing into her armor. Her claws dug into its shifting flesh, tearing, ripping, refusing to let go. I saw her fangs flash once in the blinding light, a final, defiant snarl. Then the explosion. The shockwave threw me into the tunnel wall. I remember the sound, a deep, low note that shook the earth. And then nothing, when I woke. It was dawn again. The real dawn this time, pale gold spilling over the ridge. The air clear for the first time in days. The silo entrance was gone, buried under half a ton of collapsed soil. My rebreather was cracked. My rifle was slag. My ears rang. There were no bodies, no wolves. No me march. Just silence. I limped back to the barn in a haze, my clothes scorched, my skin humming with radiation burns. The shields had failed. The power cells were dead. Everything was still. The farm looked the same, and yet nothing was the same. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at the fields, long enough for the sun to climb, long enough for the world to feel empty again. Then, faintly, I heard it. A sound carried on the wind. A howl. Not mechanical, not human, wild, free, and then another. 13 voices, overlapping, distant, fading into the horizon. I looked up. The sky was clear now, brilliant and endless. A ship streaked across it, a small crescent of silver, catching the sunlight. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe it wasn't. They were gone, but not gone. Their footprints still marked the soil. 13 sets, circling the barn, half erased by the wind. Sometimes, at night, when the stars burn cold, and the solar storms whisper across the upper atmosphere. I swear I see them, shapes moving along the fence line, eyes glowing faint gold, watching, guarding. Maybe it's memory, maybe it's warning, or maybe it's a promise, because when the world ends again, and it will, I think they'll come back, and I'll be ready.